Hello students and welcome to the e-learning program initiated by Shri Gyanmanjari Vidyapit for the students of Standard 9, in which we are learning the subject of English. Students, from the previous lecture we started with the revision work of chapter number 4. So there is revision lecture number 11. This is for the main book, that is Beehive, chapter number 4. Name of the chapter is A Truly Beautiful Mind, which is about Albert Einstein. Things to take care in this particular chapter is the life story of Albert Einstein is given in a very short chapter. The chapter is hardly 2.5 or 3 pages, including pictures, but the complete life story, that means right from the birth till the death of Albert Einstein, one of the greatest scientists of this world, it's given over there. So we have to be a little bit extra careful about what we are writing, because lots of dates, lots of facts, they are included in this chapter. Lots of childhood stories of Albert Einstein is tried to be woven over here. Then we come to the teenage age, and then we come to Albert Einstein when he starts going to the college. Then he completes his graduation and passes out of the university as a graduate student. Uh, then he tries to find work. Then he gets a proper job after 2 years. Uh, at the same time, he is preparing his own research papers that we'll come to know about. We already know it, we are just revising it. Then he does those research papers on his own uh, and puts them before the world, and all of a sudden the concepts that people had on certain theories, they got changed all of a sudden. New theories were propagated by Albert Einstein in the year 1905. After that, we still have more achievements coming from Albert Einstein, new theories, right, on new fields of science, physics. At the same time, we have some personal information of Albert Einstein, his personal life. Then we see Albert Einstein as one of the greatest scientists of the world. We have some of the pre-World War One, post-World War One. Then we have pre-World War Second, then post-World War Second scenarios. And then we see Albert Einstein trying to grow as a public figure, more in place with the world politics. And at the end of the chapter, we have a few words dedicated to Albert Einstein after his death. So all in all, we have quite a lot of facts and information about the life of Albert Einstein. So we have to be extra careful when we are writing about Albert Einstein. So let us start with the revision work. In Up till so far in this chapter, we have learned that at the time of birth, uh, Albert Einstein at the time of birth showed no indication that in future he is going to be regarded as a parallel or a synonym with genius, is going to be a genius personality. At the time of birth, nobody has anything written on the forehead revealing that in the future he's going to be really a very big man and quite a genius person, right? So even we have the views of his own mother. When the mother saw the child, she is said to have remarked that because of the large size of the head than a normal child, it seems that we are going to have some problem with this child. Maybe the child will be mentally retarded because of the size of the head. But that did not happen, and we know Einstein turned out to be quite a genius in the field of science, especially physics. Then we learned another fact that normally when children start speaking at the age of 10 months, 11 months, or 12 months, that is 1 year, by the time it is 1.5 year, mostly almost all the young children start speaking because they hear lots of words in their family, friends, neighbors, and they pick up those words. They pick up the vocabulary and start using it. And we, time to time, uh, correct their mistakes and we try to make them proficient in the language. Making proficient in the language means at least they should know what they are speaking, right? With correct grammar and correct tense and all that. So that is what happens with normal child. But even when Einstein reached the age of 2.5, he was not speaking. So that made the parents quite worried because it's high time the child should have been talking by now, but he is not speaking a single word. And after that, all of a sudden, at a supper table, Einstein gave out a complete sentence that the soup is too hot. And that quite amazed and surprised, shocked the parents because till now he didn't speak a single word. And he's speaking the complete sentence together without any mistakes. So parents naturally asked him, why up till now you were not speaking? You knew everything, but then why didn't you speak? So he says that up till now everything was going on quite in order. There was nothing out of place. I didn't have any complaint, so I didn't have to talk. But today the soup is hot and I'm not able to drink it, so I said it. So that's the story of Einstein in the childhood. Then he goes to, because he's yet 2.5, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So he has lots of other children of his same age living nearby, and he never mingles or mixes with them because of his attitude. Perhaps he doesn't know actually what to do with these children, so he stays away from them. And the rest of the children, they call him brother boring, and he's usually occupied by playing on his own, usually with the mechanical toys, so much so engrossed, or so much so he's absorbed in his mechanical toys that when he was shown the younger sister which just got birth, right? So looking at her, he questions, all right, but where are the wheels? Because mechanical toys, they should have wheels. So this much he was occupied on his own, playing on his own without mingling or mixing with the other rest of the children. When going to school, one of the headmasters, he told his father that your son, whichever occupation he takes, whichever profession he takes, please let him do whatever he wants, because in none of the profession, none of the work, he is going to be a genius. And the opposite of that happened. So sometimes attitude at younger age shows something else, but then the later age, the person reveals himself as something else. So uh, there we have up till the age where he is going to the primary school. The text goes on to say, tell us that it's not that the boy was not good at studies or he was not interested in the studies. On the opposite, on the contrary, he was a very good pupil. Yes, he was not a bad pupil. That means he scored quite good marks in all the subjects. That tell us that according to his age, his intelligence level was there. He was interested in all the subjects, and that is why he scored good marks. But then, apart from studies, he didn't show much interest anything anywhere. So the headmaster might have come to the opinion that is good for nothing. Okay, he's get good marks, but then his attitude and his behavior says something else. He stayed in the school till the high school, but he did not hate the school, he did not hate studies. What he hated was the strict regimentation of the schooling system. Yes, discipline everywhere, and you do not have any right or freedom to say something on your own. Yes, so all these things made him leave the school for good. But he did not uh, leave the studies, he continued it somewhere else. And then when the parents shifted to Milan, that is one of the big cities of Germany, he said that, and he was kept with his relatives there. He argued that if you want me to continue with my studies, when I do graduation, I would like to do graduation not in Germany but in Switzerland, and that also in the German speaking area where there are lots of Germans over there, and I will be comfortable over there. And more for the reason that this much regimentation was not there in Switzerland, and the universities were quite liberal about the freedom given to the students, allowing their ideas, concepts to come out. So much discipline, etc., was not there, and the students can have quite a healthy atmosphere to progress over there. So when after finishing his high school, he went to the University of Zurich and he continued his graduation over there. Apart from mathematics and physics, which he was very much interested, and that is why we can see that he was quite a genius in calculations, because physics involves lots of calculation, so he has to be good with mathematics also. And he was very much interested in physics. All his theories that are propagated by Einstein, they are all related with physics. Apart from mathematics and physics, he got interested in one of the co-student, Mileva Merrick, studying over there. Mileva Merrick was considered as a very bright and quite a clever creature by Albert Einstein, because maybe the likings of both of them were similar. Both of them did not believe in the Philistines. Philistine people are those people either in the family, neighbors, relatives, or in the society in general, who do not have any love for art. So both of them, they were quite interested. So their likings were same, and they fell in love. Later on, they got married also. So till now, this is where we have reached. And in after graduating from the University of Zurich, Einstein roamed for 2 years doing odd jobs, either as associate teacher or tuition teacher or doing something else. For 2 years, he just did odd jobs for a living. After 2 years, he secured a government job at the patent office of Bern, where he was supposed to assess the different inventions that are submitted for getting patented. And on his own, he was working on theories. If you people remember, I asked you to be very careful with that particular paragraph, because Einstein considered his desk as those inventions were submitted to him. He considered those inventions as theoretical physics, because people first went to school, then they went to high school, like you are in 9th and 10th, right? And after that, higher secondary, that we have now, 11th and 12th, and then we go to college, that is graduation. So in 11th and 12th, in college, when we get a degree, etc., we learn all the basics of physics. Based on that, rest of the scientists, they do some invention where theory is already there. They do a little bit modification in that, and they make up their own invention. So all those inventions that came to, or they were submitted for making a patent, they were basically based on the theories that they learnt in the college. So all of those inventions were theoretical physics. Nobody tried to change the theory or look at the theory from a different point of view. That is exactly what Einstein did. He did not make any invention, but he gave some groundbreaking theories which changed the earlier concept or which changed the earlier theories. And new theories were given by Einstein, and those theories were proved to be absolutely correct. And the whole of the world was shaken that the theories that they used to use up till now for any practical approach in physics or any experimental or inventional experiment that they did, they were based on the theories. Now the theories got changed. The way we look at those theories, now the theories were of no use because now new theories that were propagated by Einstein are now being used. So in this way, Einstein did not believe in those inventions. He believed in changing the theories, and he gave four groundbreaking theories or papers submitted in different aspects of science, different aspects of physics, that made him instantly popular. Now we come to today's lecture, which also gives us an insight on his personal life. In his personal life, while Einstein was solving most difficult problems in physics, his private life was unraveling. He was engrossed in his work in science. At the same time, his private life also lots of progress was happening. Albert Einstein was a maverick just after getting graduation, but his mother was against it. Why the mother did not want Albert to marry Mileva? It is because reasons. First thing is, Mileva was 3 years older than Albert Einstein, and everywhere it's the same rule apply. Husband's age should be more than the wife's age, and according to that, Albert's mother thought Mileva was 3 years older or elder than Albert Einstein, and that is why she was against the marriage, that your wife will be 3 years elder to you. So was too old. 3 years is too old for Albert Einstein. Suppose Einstein is 25, then Mileva is 28. That means she is 3 years older to you, and that's not accepted. Second, both of them were of the same kind. Both of them were highly educated. Both of them were graduate, right? So Einstein spent whole of the day. He did not have many friends, right? He did not have friends to spend time with. Whole of the day he was engrossed in his studies, in his research paper, and never became social. So the wife would also be the same, because she is also highly qualified, and she is also a highly qualified person. So at the end, there will be two books in the house. One is Albert, another is the wife, Mileva. She was also bothered by Mileva's intelligence. She is a book like you. She is also quite intelligent. She is also quite sharp, because she is a science student, and both of you are possessing degrees of science subjects. Both of you are quite clever, intelligent, and at the end, both of you will be books in the house. So Einstein put off the wedding. Put off the wedding means he cancelled the wedding at that time, but he could not keep Mileva out of his mind. The pair married in January 1903. So in January 1903 or 1903, Albert Einstein and Mileva Merrick, they got married, and after that, few years later, they had two sons. But the marriage faltered. That means the marriage did not work out properly. The reason given to us is both of them were quite highly educated, talented, and Mileva Merrick, she felt that her life was being wasted as a housewife, taking care of the husband, taking care of the, say, parents of the husband, and taking care of the two children, always looking after the household, taking care of the household. Whatever education she got, she cannot use it. Yes, so was losing her intellectual ambition, just like everybody else. She also graduated with science subjects, and she was equally talented. Like Albert Einstein, she could secure a job, and she can also uh, bring in lots of money and make a career. But the intellectual ambition was curtained by the work that was, or the responsibility that Mileva Merrick was doing right now, is dutifully serving the husband and the children and looking after the household. It looked as if the intellectual ambition had come to an end, and she was very unhappy with the marriage and unhappy with being only a housewife, and she could not go ahead with her career. So that led to constant fighting, and Albert Einstein at the end got very much fed up because he's not able to concentrate on his work, and finally the couple divorced in 1990. So from 1903, whole of this paragraph deals with the personal life of Albert Einstein. The marriage happens, but they have children also. But after long years, the intellectual ambition that the wife had, she could not bear that her ambition is nowhere to be achieved. She cannot achieve anything if she remains as a housewife. So finally, after some 15-16 years, they got divorced. Einstein married his cousin Elsa the same year. The same year, Einstein got remarried to his cousin Elsa the same year. Now we come to the professional achievement of Albert Einstein. This uh, paragraph also bears lots of importance. Einstein's new personal chapter coincided with his rise to the world fame. Now, the personal chapter, that is his marriage, his divorce, and uh, remarrying, and the professional achievement that he got, all of them happened nearly the same time. In 1915, he had published his, now we have another. First one was special theory of relativity. Now we have general theory of relativity, which provided a new interpretation of gravity. He changed the concept of looking at the theory of gravitation with his new theory, that is general theory of relativity. With that, the world witnessed yet another theory from Albert Einstein, which changed the earlier known concept about gravitation. And in 1919, remember, in 1919 they got divorced. They got divorced in 1919, and in the same year, an eclipse of the sun proved that Albert Einstein had correctly and absolutely properly calculated and proven his theory about general theory of relativity, that tells us more about the interpretation of gravity. Now what was that? Einstein had correctly calculated in advance the extent to which the light from stars would be deflected through the sun's gravitational field. We know during these eclipses the gravitational force increases, and that will deflect the light coming from fixed stars. If we look in the sky, there are numerous stars, and most of them are quite fixed, right? And because the earth rotates, the stars are there, the earth rotates, so we see the stars in different location, but the location of the stars, they are fixed. Now the stars look like twinkling. It's because the light takes quite a long time from the stars to reach to us, and during all that time there are lots of planets or other suns that deflect the light because the light has to pass through the gravitational fields of lots of other stars when they reach our solar system. And if we are having an eclipse, the light that is coming to the earth from these stars, that will be deflected and then it will reach us. So Einstein had calculated in advance the extent to which that light will all that calculation he had based on his general theory of relativity, that is gravitation, through the sun's gravitational field. The newspapers proclaimed his work as a scientific revolution. A scientific revolution revolution happens when the basic concepts, they just evaporate or vanish in thin air, and a new theory sets in which changes the earlier concept that we had in that particular field. Then there is a scientific revolution which changes everything, each and every idea people had up till now, or which changes the concepts of the earlier known theory. Einstein received the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921 after his calculations were proved, after his general theory of relativity became famous, popular, and absolutely correct. So he was awarded Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921. Please it. He was showered with honors and invitation from all over the world and lauded by the press. He was so much acclaimed by the press, lauded by the press, so much acclaimed, so much given so high a place, and there were lots and lots of invitation coming in from various parts of the country, various parts of the world, where he was asked to give speech and asked to tell about all the theories that he has propagated. So it's beneficial to the upcoming students, because during their time of studies these theories changed. So the students, they have a right to know about the latest theories, the latest changes in the theories. So he was called from all over the world to come and give speeches, and he was quite acclaimed by the press. Now we have a slight change. 1919 he got divorced. 1919, because of a solar eclipse, his theory of general relativity got success, because in 1915 he had published general theory of relativity, which got proved by the solar eclipse that was going to happen 4 years later in 1919. So it was not a prediction, it was exact calculations, and his theory proved to be absolutely correct. This is quite a huge achievement. So 1919 he got divorced, 1919 he was proved to be correct, his theory was proved to be correct, and we should also remember that 1919 World War I came to an end. Right? Now the World War II started in 1939 and lasted up to 1945. So when the Nazis came to power after the First World War, the Nazis came to power in around 1930, and 1931 Hitler started getting more popularity, and that is where the Nazis came to power in 1933. So when the Nazis came to power in 1933, Einstein emigrated to United States because he was a physicist. We know the nuclear bombs, they are based on physics, right? So all those scientists who were working in the field of physics, they were forcefully made to work under the government's order, and they had to work for producing new types of weapons for mass destruction, because already World War I had a witness of it, and if another war has to be fought, then Germany will certainly need weapons of mass destruction. So they are going to force these scientists to produce more and more weapons of mass destruction. So these scientists, they already had in mind that if the Nazis come to power, then we will be forcefully working under these Nazis. So not only Germany, the neighboring countries also, lots of uh, scientists, they fled to USA, took asylum in USA and other countries of the allies. They readily gave asylum or protection to these uh, scientists who fled from these areas of uh, Europe, and citizenship was given to these scientists. So in the same way, in 1933, sensing that danger is going to come because Nazis are in power, Albert Einstein emigrated to United States. 5 years later, they came to know a very important discovery that happened in Germany. That discovery was of nuclear fission. In Berlin, had American physicists in an uproar. The American physicists, they came to know about a very important discovery that was made by the Nazi rule. That is, they got a breakthrough in nuclear fission theory, and now that means they are able to produce nuclear bombs having lots of capacity for mass destruction or killing lots of people at one time. So now all of the physicists that were in USA, they went into uproar, because if the Nazis are preparing a bomb and if we have to go into a war, we also need the same. Many of them, they had fled to USA just like Albert Einstein, and just as Einstein had, and now they were afraid that Nazis could build and use an atomic bomb that would create mass destruction. So after arguing with a colleague, the colleague urged Einstein that you are a very, very famous scientist. Now you are the greatest scientist of this world. So why don't you communicate with the government of USA and tell them about this bomb? Yes, it's going to be uh, quite useful if you write to the president of the American country and you tell him about this destruction which is going to come, possible destruction because of this new discovery of nuclear fission. So at the requesting of a colleague who works together and is called a colleague, Einstein wrote a letter to the then American president. At that time the American president was Franklin Roosevelt. Wrote on 2nd August 1939. 1939 is the year when Second World War started, in which he warned the president a single bomb of this nuclear fission type, if that is exploded on a harbor, it can completely destroy the harbor, all the ships that are there, and quite a large area surrounding the port. Exploded in a port might very well destroy whole of the port, all the ships standing over there, together with some of the surrounding area also. So this is just to warn the president that one such bomb can do a lot of destruction, and we need to be prepared for this type of bombing. His words failed to have an effect. That means as soon as the president received letter from one of the most senior and one of the most greatest physicist of the world at that time, Albert Einstein, and if Albert Einstein says this can happen, then the president better listen to Albert Einstein and work upon it, and he started work. Secretly, the Americans developed the atomic bomb in a secret project of their own, and we know in 1945 the nuclear bomb was ready, and the World War II was at its peak, and it was very necessary to stop the advances of China into the Pacific Ocean, because at the end of that It's United States that they are approaching towards, and when States it saw Japan approaching towards them, it was very much needful to stop their advance, and they dropped two nuclear bombs, one on Hiroshima and another on Nagasaki. We know the history, right? Which completely destroyed the cities and all the population that lived in it, and crippled lakhs of people living, and it crippled generations and generations that came after it. So, such a lot of destruction was there because of the dropping of the nuclear bombs on two important cities of uh, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Japanese government could not bear the loss of so many civilians. Two cities completely vaporized from the surface of the earth along with its population, total destruction at ground zero, and hardly survivors were there, and those survivors were crippled, and many more generations to be crippled because of the nuclear cloud, because of the radiation that leaked from these areas and spread in the nearby areas, crippling more and more people, altering the DNA. And the child that was born after the nuclear attack, it was born crippled because of the nuclear attack, the radiation, and Albert Einstein was not able to digest the destruction that happened over here. Japan also was not able to digest such a huge loss to it, and it surrendered, and that brought the end of the Second World War. The Einstein, deeply shaken by the extent of destruction, as we just discussed, the extent of destruction was so huge that millions of people just lost their lives. Everything standing was erased from the ground. Radiation spread in the nearby areas, killing more and more people getting handicapped, becoming handicapped, and the future generation born was also crippled. And that was quite a big loss to the men material, and the Japanese government could not bear it, and they surrendered. And at the same time, Nazi power also came to an end with Hitler killing himself, suicide in Germany, and thus 1945 the World War II came to an end. Einstein was deeply shaken by the extent of the destruction. This time he wrote a public missive to the UN, rather to the US, because US made those bombs and they dropped it on the Japanese city. So he did not write it to the government of the United States of America, but in 1945 we know that an organized body, that is United Nations, was born, and which was responsible to bring world peace. So rather than writing to the US, Albert Einstein wrote a public missive, that is appeal to the United Nations. This time he wrote, and in this letter he proposed for the formation of world government where there are no countries, boundaries between all these fights, all these wars, all these destruction happens because there are boundaries. Countries, they declare that territory and they wage a war to protect their territory or to take someone else's territory. All this happens because of the boundaries that we have created. And in that letter, Einstein urged UN nation to finish off with these boundaries and make a world government where there are no countries, there are only world citizens. All the citizens of the living on the planet Earth, they should be considered one without any name of countries. So he said about formation of the world government. Unlike the letter to Roosevelt, this man made no effect. He wrote a letter to Roosevelt, the then president of US, and quickly he started building an atom bomb, right? Einstein's words, they had a very deep impact on the president of USA. But this time he wrote a letter to the UN, and this letter did not bear any fruits. So this is the reason he started becoming a public figure. He started taking interest in the politics. His main aim was to stop the countries from acquiring more and more weapons. He wanted to stop this weapon race, and he wanted to stop the use of physics for the purpose of war. Over the next decade, Einstein got more and more involved in politics, agitating for an end to the arms buildup, agitating, requesting people, protesting against governments to stop arm race, to acquire more and more arms. उसके पाँच पाँच मिसाइल है तो मेरे पास 10 होनी चाहिए, उसके पास 10 है तो मेरे पास 15 होनी चाहिए. So all the countries are in a race to build up the arms, and using his popularity to campaign for peace and democracy. All these things happened because democracy was not there. Germany dictatorship was there. बाजू में इटली एक्सेस पावर्स का एक बहुत ही important हिस्सा. There also fascism was there. The same thing happened in Japan. So dictatorial type of rule was prevalent in these countries. It was the ambition of one man to conquer whole of Europe and whole of the world, and that led to World War II. So डेमोक्रेसी के लिए एल्बर्ट आइंस्टाइन ने बहुत ही कैंपेन किया, एंड इफ देयर इज डेमोक्रेसी देन देयर विल बी पीस. So now we come to the last paragraph of the chapter. When Einstein died in 1955, the date to be remembered, his age was 76. He was celebrated when he died. After his death, he was celebrated as a visionary because it was his vision in lot many fields, not only in science. It was for world population, it was for the earth. He was considered as a visionary who could look into the future and not predict future, but he can look into the future and try to do some changes now so that the future can be altered. The destructive future that we have, it can be altered now. And he was considered as a world citizen because he propagated for a world government where there are no countries. There is only one government ruling all over the world, and mad people are not ruling the world. Much same as he was considered a scientific genius. So the last paragraph is equally important because it portrays or it depicts Albert Einstein as not only a genius in science, not only a great scientist, but how the world sees Albert Einstein as a visionary, as a world citizen. Albert Einstein, he did not give his theory for one country to use. He gave it to the world, right? Anybody can use his theory, right? So it means he was a world citizen. Yes, he did whatever good he did, whether it is in academics, whether it is in profession, whether it is regarding the peace and prosperity for the world. He is considered as one of the greatest personalities then also and today also. Today also, if you say genius, you think of only one person, that is Albert Einstein. So that means we do not have yet also anybody who can replace Einstein as a genius, right? So today also genius का synonym Albert Einstein है, and that proves right with the help of this chapter. Here we come to the end of today's lecture and completion of chapter number 4 of Beehive. Thank Thank you, students.